I think I'm saying that we struggle all our lives to answer it. That it's the struggle that is important. That's what helps us to define our place in the universe.
This is Beverly, Dr. Beverly, Dr. Beverly Crusher. Honest.
Forceful.
Trusting.
Brilliant.
Strong.
And adventurous.
And this is Crusher Convo. Hey guys, and welcome to Crusher Convo, where we are crushing the conversation one episode at a time. Today, I have one great sci-fi expert who didn't realize how much he liked Star Trek until recently.
Yeah.
I have Ro from Scarif Podcast to help me discuss DS9's Far Beyond the Stars in my What Would Beverly Do segment. Hey Ro, how are you?
Fantastic, Jesse. How you doing? Good to be here. Good to be seen. Good to be here in the Delta Quadrant. No, the Alpha Quadrant.
It's the Alpha Quadrant, yes.
My quadrant's correct.
So, Ro, I do have this one question before we get into it. So, why do you like Star Trek, and why is it Beverly Crusher? I'm just kidding, but
it's funny because you mentioned in the open that I didn't realize how much I liked Star Trek, and I think that started when I met you along with some of the other Star Trek people in our group, and I realized, you go back into that safe space of watching what you like, repeat viewings of the original series, Next Generation, et cetera, et cetera. And then you're like, wow, I'm like a big freaking nerd. It's like, I like all the Star Treks and the Star Wars and stuff like that. But it is interesting because, it's, I guess, obviously my first love is Star Wars, but when, in the 90s and we've said this before, during the dark times, the dark period where there was no Star Wars at all, we had to get our fix somewhere. And I think for me, Star Trek in the 90s really, really fit the bill. There was, the UPN network started with Voyager. And then, obviously you had Star Trek: The Next Generation. And then, at one point there were like 3 Star Trek TV shows on at the same time, which to us was like, oh my God, science fiction on television is fantastic. And it's great. So I'm really happy that I'm part of like 2 really cool families, more or less. Star Trek, Star Wars, and it's just a lot of fun. I mean, there are obvious differences between the 2 franchises, which you and I have discussed at length on many occasions. But I always love talking, sci-fi with anybody. And speaking of group, some wonderful people in my chat. I know we're simulcasting on both of our channels. I hope we see.
I like this one. We're all nerds, but we're cool nerds.
Absolutely.
We gotta love that. Now, Danny's correct. There's different franchises. What are you talking about? It's all just one big happy family.
One big happy family. That is correct.
Hello, Jay, my bestie over here. And then here's Ro. He's saying Ro, hello. So
Ubaldo and I are gonna get into some trouble soon. You got to come out to Chicago.
Yeah, cause some havoc over there.
Absolutely, David Jones. I saw you with Josh. And it is now tradition. I don't know if you heard, but anytime David shows up, we have to mention how handsome he is.
I caught on when I was watching Josh's thing. I was like, "There's a theme going on here."
Yeah, we had him a while ago, and I remember saying that I'm not afraid. I'm secure enough to say that you're a nice looking dude, and then they said the same thing on Josh's show, so it's hilarious. So every time, when he's back on the Scarif Scuttlebutt podcast, we'll make sure to carry that tradition.
Well, I was going to say that no matter what, nerdy podcast he decides to join, we'll just continue the tradition. Just let everyone know. So, if he ever comes on mine, I'll make sure to say the same thing, and it won't end like that. So anyways, I guess we'll go ahead and start to crush it, which we're going to do the little breakdown of this episode. I do have some fun facts. So
excellent.
The Stars was a teleplay by Ira Stephen Bear and Hans Beimler, story by Mark Scott Zicree, and directed by Avery Brooks. Now, so of course, everyone knows the episode is experiencing a vision from the prophets. Sisko sees himself as Benny Russell, a science fiction writer in the 1950s, who struggles with civil rights and equality when he writes the story of Captain Benjamin Sisko, a Black commander of a futuristic space station. And I thought this was interesting, so I'll try and make this as brief as I can. So Zicree's original pitch focused on Jake Sisko rather than his father. He was actually experiencing a vision. He traveled through time back to the 50s, met a group of struggling science fiction writers. However, at the end of the episode, it was revealed that he never time traveled at all. It was all part of a trick played on him by an alien who wanted to find out something about humanity. Now, Bear didn't like the idea, saying it felt a little like a gimmick. There was no bottom to the story. So he turned it down. However, he did like the backdrop concerning science fiction writers in the 50s. So he kept that in mind. And several months later, he decided to switch the protagonist to Sisko, his father, Ben Sisko, and introduced the theme of racism. It is an unusual break in protocol, but he pitched the idea to Zicree and asked him to write a story based upon it. And as he did, Bear took Zicree's story outline and along with Hans Beimler composed a script. And I did want to show the iconic photo here. I love this shot. I mean, Avery's a great director. He's done a couple of episodes in DS9. He really focuses on the characters, the emotion, things like that. So, I didn't see what the script said per se, but just to have that there and be able to shoot it and then do the whole effects and stuff like that, especially for the 90s. This is awesome.
Sure. Yeah.
So, but yeah, I love the concept of the episode. In a recent episode that I did with Abby, we were talking about best Beverly outfits. I had asked her what holodeck, program would she do? And I had told her that if I had ever done a holodeck program, I would go April 15th, 1947. Here comes Jackie Robinson, first in Major League Baseball. And he is just my favorite. And so when I was watching this episode, because I think this was set in 1953, I got a lot of those, what Jackie Robinson had gone through while he was playing professional baseball, as what Michael Dorn's character had mentioned. Right. Unfortunately, it was New York Giants, but I'll let slide. But, it was one of those things where that was still going. Even though Jackie had been on the team for years, there was already other Black baseball players and stuff. It was just, couldn't even walk down the street.
Right.
And I liked that Bear brought it into even Star Trek because it was about to, it shows this is our future, right? He was a captain of this space station. We just saw Discovery that just ended where it was a female Black captain, and she was an admiral. And, Whoopi Goldberg had mentioned she loved Star Trek because she saw Uhura on the bridge. She wasn't a maid. She was actually like,
the bridge officer. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's the future that we all are striving for. Just equality, everyone working together, just having that hope that things will change.
Sure.
Right. So when you saw the episode, what was your first take on it when you rewatched it? Because you have, I know you've seen DS9 before.
Sure. Yes. I know you had to remind me which episode it was, but I did my homework and I rewatched this episode a couple of nights ago.
Yeah.
I remember the episode, but initially I wasn't sure what the base for the premise was. I didn't know if he was dreaming, and I forgot about the whole prophets thing where Sisko was supposedly, a prophet, or the prophets from Bajor. I forgot that whole situation there. But that time frame in our real world is interesting to me. Right there, that little sweet spot, like right before John F. Kennedy was assassinated, and that era of U.S. history really intrigues me, because it's almost there's like an age of innocence that kind of starts to get transformed into not so innocent. Obviously, I mentioned the assassination of JFK, and then soon after that you've got his brother, and we start to see, I guess, society, I don't know, start to crumble in a way politically. And I think a lot of television shows, especially the shows that kind of deal with putting a lens on humanity, like Star Trek does, really reflect those stories that they serve as a reminder, for us to take a look at the past so we don't repeat our mistakes. I mean, I think, to some degree, society will continue to repeat the mistakes of the past. It's cyclical. But like you mentioned, we are all kind of hoping and striving for some sort of change and hope. But it's interesting because when I rewatched the episode, I was intrigued. First of all, I was intrigued that the regular cast members, especially the folks that are in heavy makeup, were just allowed to act, with none of their makeup, like Odo.
Yeah.
Kira, obviously. So I liked that the actors, Michael Dorn, you mentioned, I liked that the actors kind of, were let loose to act, to be another persona in the show that they all share experiences with. I think when actors do that, I'm happy for them, because you get into acting to pretend and get paid for it.
Right.
And I would assume that it's a lot of fun, but it's wonderful to be able to see these actors kind of I don't know, flex their acting muscle and just kind of, free themselves emotionally, free themselves in this craft that gives them so much variety. And with a show like Star Trek, if you're one character, unless the creative people behind the scenes write a really unique script where the character does something different and it makes sense, obviously, they kind of get stuck in that character. A doctor is always going to be a doctor. One of the bridge officers is going to be, so it's a little monotonous, episodic television when you're in one of these television shows. But I loved the fact that these actors really got a chance to not play a Klingon on Deep Space Nine, or to not play Bajoran. So it was really great, and I loved that's one of the aspects of this episode in particular that I really enjoyed.
Danny says Captain Sisko is her captain, and she says, I want him to hug me and tell me everything's going to be okay. And it's funny because we feel that with a lot of, especially our captains. Like I know some people who just love Picard or love Janeway or love Sisko, and it's just like that's just who they gravitate towards. It's not because it was their Trek; it's just because of what they're representing.
Sure.
Right?
I want Janeway to hug me and tell me everything's going to be okay. Just as a side note. Just
to throw it in there, right? So, hello everyone from Backyard TARDIS. And then she says, hey, Nick. So we got a little party going on in the chat.
Always.
I picked up on that the very first characters, first off, are the first characters you see part of this dream, I guess you could say, was the characters that usually have the heavy makeup. So you saw, instead of Odo, he was the other, the publishing editor, the main guy. Right. Then it was Michael Dorn who's going. And then even Aaron, who plays Nog. And
oh yeah, that's right. Rest in peace.
Rest in peace. I know. It was cool because he was doing this New York accent, and he was just like throwing all these little, sayings and stuff. And I remember when I first saw it, I was like, why does he look familiar? And then I realized I was like,
hear the voice, right? Yeah, you hear the voice. you know, and obviously if you don't know them, what they look like, you know, behind the makeup, I mean,
No.
especially Nog, because I mean the Ferengi makeup is like really heavy, but
Right.
you can tell the voices. Armin Shimmerman the same way. It's like,
Right.
well, I kind of
Mhm.
recognize him. Yeah.
Here's the thing with Armin, though. All I kept saying was, all I saw was Principal Sniper's from Buffy. That's all.
Right.
That's what I grew
Sure.
up on. Um, but so that's what I saw. And then even with the Now Visitor with Kira, you know, all she has really was the nose thing. So she was able to kind of go back and forth quickly.
Right.
Same with Terry and Jadzia. But
Oh,
I
and
found it interesting.
Terry Farrell did a wonderful job with her
Yeah,
character.
she
Yeah.
did. She
Yeah.
cracked me up. She was all
Mhm.
like, "Oh, she has a worm in her belly.
Yeah.
That's disgusting. Interesting." But
Yeah.
just like she just played, you know, they all put 110% into
Mm.
these fictional characters, you know, these
Sure.
doubles that they were doing. I did find it interesting though, when they were talking, well, when they were showing these different characters, and then all of a sudden, like Cisco would be Cisco, Captain Cisco, and then all of a sudden he's looked and he saw, instead of Willie, he saw Worf, right? And I was all like, man, they were in the chair for like 4 hours to do a
Right.
2-second
That one
scene.
shot. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
was like, oh man. And they did the same with Mark, who was Gold Dukat,
Mhm.
and then Jeffrey Combs, who was uh
I
Windu?
forgot. Right. I
Windu?
forget his
It's
name.
it's hard for me to
Yeah.
pronounce that name, but that was a split second when he was getting beaten up. But I did like that they used the two villains of Deep Space Nine to be the
Mhm.
two
FBI, whatever.
cops. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I thought that was very interesting. But yeah, to see them outside of makeup and do something different, it was very, very
Refreshing.
cool. It
Yeah.
was very refreshing. Totally different Star Trek
Mhm.
episode. Jay says the acting in this episode is top tier. You are absolutely right. Like I said, even when their Star Trek characters, they were 110%, and then they put it all, you know,
Yeah.
in there with the situations that was going on with Benny,
Sure.
right? Bringing up, I do want to mention too, because this was about racism and injustice, but they did bring up about how it was hard to be a woman writer,
Mhm.
and it made
Yeah.
me think of DC Fontana.
Right. Of course.
And because I believe, and I wrote her name down. So Kira was playing Kay Eaton, but her writing name was Casey Hunter.
Mhm.
And I was like,
Totally.
that
Yeah.
is totally a nod for DC Fontana. So
Yeah.
yeah, I liked how that was played into the story. Like
Sure.
it wasn't forgotten, you
Yeah.
know.
Very,
Of
very
course,
well thought out. Yeah.
yeah. And you know, and that's just Ira. He took Star Trek to a whole new level.
Mhm.
He didn't play by the rules.
Sure.
And I think that's why a lot of people love Deep Space Nine, because it didn't play by the rules. It opened up a lot of different subjects, even in the future.
Mhm.
Because I know Gene Roddenberry really wanted to show hope for the future and everyone's getting along and all this stuff. But that's not necessarily realistic, because even like you said, we can be striving for better and do better, but there's always going to be those moments where we do fall.
Right.
You know, there's going to be those moments where it's not going to be perfect.
Mhm.
So, and it makes sense, if you're going to be meeting a new species that doesn't know you, they're going to be on their guard. They're going to be defensive. They're probably not going to welcome you at first, which was the same with the Klingons when, you know, humans met them. So it's always good to see those conflicts and then see a result, whether it was good or bad, to those conflicts.
Sure.
So, you know, and I think that's also what played out in this episode as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I was kind of skimming through IMDb just to kind of read some of the reviews that the episode had at the time. You know,
Mhm.
there were a few people that said it was, you know, it was great. There was obviously some people that said it was a little heavy-handed. I don't think it was heavy-handed. I think, you know, within the context of Star Trek, I think, you know, we're kind of, I think we're used to these stories.
Mhm.
Obviously, you know, the examination of the human condition, especially from the perspective of this group of characters, the science fiction writers in this
Right.
episode, I think they did a really great job. And I keep wanting to say Tex Avery, and Tex Avery is a Warner Brothers cartoon director. It's
Okay.
not Tex Avery. It's not Tex Avery. What the hell's his name? The actor, Cisco.
Oh,
Avery Brooks.
Oh, okay.
I keep wanting to say Tex Avery.
Okay. I was so confused for a second. I thought you were talking about something else, and I was all
No.
like, okay, great.
And I didn't realize that he directed this. It's funny because they're at a certain point, when you watch some of these shows, you get to see some of the actors' names in the directorial spot, which is cool.
Mhm.
Like obviously, Jonathan Frakes. You have Belana Torres, who also directs a couple of Enterprise shows, and she directed some of the Voyager episodes. So it's kind of cool to kind of see some of these actors kind of switch roles and direct them and their colleagues in these shows. It's got to be a very rewarding thing to be able to kind of spearhead an episode, especially an episode of this type of story,
Right.
because it does deal with some very important topics and some very deep racially motivated situations that happened back in the 40s, 50s, et cetera. So it's really great to kind of see these actors tackle those things on these shows. I don't think it was heavy-handed, as some people say, but Star Trek, if anything, is one of those franchises that really you can almost use Star Trek as a textbook when it comes to historical stories and an allegory to the lessons that humanity has learned. So I really dug this episode.
No, it's very true. And I'm sure Ira was all like, Avery, you got to direct this. Because, to name, it was like Patrick Stewart's directed, LeVar Burton, Michael Dorn, like you said, is it Roxanne Dawson?
Right.
Who's Belana Torres? Yeah. And then, of course, Gates McFadden did one. And so, it's always nice to see the actors just do something a little different. But I always feel like I could tell when an actor is directing because sometimes they do these different shots that you don't normally see that directors will kind of just, they're just normally doing it, just get the episode going. But the actors really want to show the whole artistic, view of the performances and the sets and how, like Gates McFadden, like she did these high shots where it was looking down. So it would be more scarier, right? Because her episode was more scary. I remember one of Patrick's, I think it was Phantasms, I believe it was, which was Data was having dreams and stuff. And he did this dolly effect where he was just walking down the corridor and it just kept going, but it looked eerie and you could tell it was a dream because of the way it was scooping around. Like sometimes when I look at that, I'm like, I wonder if an actor did this because this is different. This is what you normally don't see.
Yeah.
So Jay real quick says, absolutely needed a Black voice to tell the story properly. Period. Yeah. Yes.
Sure. Yeah.
I mean, it would have been a little weird to have anybody else do it, right? And this is actually a perfect segue. So thank you, Jay, because I do want to show my favorite scene in the episode. So anyone who's in the chat, grab your tissues because every time I watch this, I'm like, I can't finish this. So anyways.
Wow.
To hell with you and to hell with Stone!
Try to stay calm, Benny.
No, I'm tired of being calm. Calm never got me a damn thing.
I'm warning you, Benny, if you don't stop this, I'm going to call the police.
You go ahead, call them! Call anybody you want. They can't do anything to me. Not anymore, and nor can any of you. I'm a human being, damn it. You can deny me all you want, but you cannot deny Ben Cisco exists. That future, That space station, all those people, they exist in here. In my mind, I created it. And every one of you know it. You read it. It's here. You hear what I'm telling you? You can pump a story, but you cannot destroy an idea. Don't you understand? That's ancient knowledge. You cannot destroy an idea. That future, I created it, and it's real. Don't you understand? It is real. I created it, and it's real. It's real. Oh, God.
Holy prophets. I mean,
Yeah.
and Jay
Go ahead.
says it perfectly. It's a crime Avery Brooks win an Emmy for that scene. The way he says, I am a human being.
Right.
And you're just like,
Yeah. It's powerful.
oh my gosh.
I'm not black, but I am considered a minority. But
Mhm.
you can tell in his voice, in his character, the frustration, the hopelessness, this is the last straw of being treated badly or poorly because of the color of my skin. That entire monologue, and obviously done with one shot, no cutting away to anything, no reactions. There was one reaction at the beginning, but once he kept going, that was it. It was powerful. It was powerful. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it reminded me too, going back to my Jackie Robinson story. So when 42 came out, I was super excited. And I know a lot of it's for dramatic effect. When one of the white players was like, I can't play this game because I have a lot of family are just unhappy with me coming, and here's some notes. And it was saying, you suck and blah, blah, blah. And, Harrison Ford's character, he's like, oh, well, let me show you what Jackie's been getting. He pulls out this thick file, slams it down as low, like, I hope you die. I hope your baby dies. You blah, blah, blah. And he's all like, and Jackie knows about it, but he still goes out there and plays, because that's what Jackie wanted. He just wanted to play ball. He just wanted to play ball. He just wanted to do something. He was a human being who enjoyed playing baseball. Another favorite, though, a little bit off topic, but because back then California wasn't as segregated as, of course, the South. So when Jackie brought Rachel to the South to do, I don't remember if it was a game or auditioning for a game, she saw the whites only on the bathroom. I don't know if this happened. It might have just been for the movie.
Right, sure.
But she looked at it and he's all like, yeah, you get used to it. And she just went in and just walked right into the bathroom. And he's like, Rachel, oh man. Because she didn't care. She's like, I need to use the restroom and the other one's too far. So, because at some point they're done.
Yeah,
they're absolutely done with the crap. They're done with the crap. Yeah. And that's why he was all like, this is the future. This is what they were striving for, was to be seen, just to be seen.
Yeah. And that's what I mean. The emotion that just comes pouring out of Avery Brooks's performance in that scene is palpable. It's, you can empathize with his plight, and he's just, he's had enough by the time of this episode. Yeah. He has had enough. They weren't paying him. They weren't printing the story, and for the reasons that the characters were talking about. You can't have a black captain, in prominence on a space station. So,
and the only way it might be published was because it was a dream.
Maybe it was a dream. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that would make it okay. And there were characters that said, Benny, come on, just. It's okay if it was a dream, at least it's out there. But he wanted that extra, that extra step. So yeah.
And Danny, you're right. He was one of the best actors out there, especially for the franchise.
You remember what he was doing before Deep Space Nine? Remember the show he was on?
No, I'd never watched it, but I had heard about it on,
Yeah,
actually, I think it was on the center seat. They were talking about it.
Spencer for Hire. It was like, kind of like a Magnum PI. He was
Yeah.
the partner. And I always remember him because he always had those cool glasses with the gold rims up on top. Yeah.
So he looked all cool and
Yeah.
stuff. Now, of course, Pixel had said that this was a similar storytelling device from the Inner Light and TNG, which is true.
Yeah.
But so here's actually my only what were the prophets trying to teach Cisco?
Yes, I mean that was my confusion, first off the bat, because
It ended so abruptly where it was like, he's here, and I'm all like, well, what was the point of him going through that?
Yeah. I mean, at the end he said, I had a vision that Benny was having a dream, but what if we're having the dream and Benny is real? So it almost like needed like another 5 minutes at the end just to do a little more explanation. But I think here's what I think. I think it was twofold. But I think both of them would apply in the real world versus the Star Trek world. I think it was just designed to show other people. It was designed to put yourself in other people's shoes, right? If that makes sense. Yes. And I think from a racial standpoint, that is the only way that we can somehow eliminate racial bias, is to be able to put yourself in your neighbor's shoes and realize that we all want the same thing. You mentioned Jackie Robinson. He just wanted to play baseball, just like the white guy. We all want the same thing. We have families, we have, careers, we have jobs, we have needs, just like dreams. We have dreams, just like the next guy. So I think, Star Trek does that aspect of teaching us, humility, teaching us empathy. And really, I mean, science fiction in general does that so well, because you can, writers can write all of these wonderful stories and wrap them in a shiny package that is science fiction. And I think a lot of the times, you absorb these stories. A lot of times we don't know why we like something. It might be subconsciously. But consciously we're not aware of a lot of lessons that we're kind of absorbing through these stories. And I think science fiction is a perfect avenue for that.
Oh, absolutely. Now, Backyard TARDIS says the point was to teach him that sometimes you have to stand up for change, even when society norms tells you no. Starfleet didn't like him being the emissary. That is very true.
Yeah.
Or even also, he's actually saying more. So he originally intended to revisit the character of Benny, but it fell through.
That would have been cool.
Also, at the beginning, his buddy had died. Remember that she was letting him know, it wasn't the Saratoga, it was like the Cortez or something like that.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
It was destroyed and it was his friend and he was very upset, and he just didn't like the loss of it, and he felt defeated, So the prophets were teaching him something. It was just, it ended so abruptly. We didn't really get that fulfilling answer, at the very end. That's how it was just kind of abrupt. Like you said, it just needed 5 more minutes.
Yeah. One less Charmin commercial.
One less Charmin commercial, one less, I know I was going to say Reese's, but I like Reese's. We'll stick with that. But yeah, so the next topic is going to be, what would Beverly do? She wouldn't take crap.
No, not at all.
She would be like Armin's character.
Yeah. It might not have.
The donuts wouldn't sway her.
Right. Oh yeah. The donuts. Yeah.
He was like, all right, I'll come back for donuts. She would be like, screw your donuts.
Yeah.
You better publish his story.
Right.
She wouldn't stand for it. Beverly was always that character who put everyone, even strangers, because she was a doctor, her patients, her friends, her family, always came first. So if she was put in this predicament, being a character, let's say like a Casey Hunter, Kira's character, and she was forced to hide. Like, she just would no.
Mm-hmm.
No.
Yeah.
She's like, all right, I already have to deal with this crap, but like he almost died because he got upset that his friend was killed,
Sure.
like
Yeah.
he was beaten by the cops, and
Mm-hmm.
it was just, and I remember, which was Michael Dorn's character as he came in. I know the Cassidy character, she was the waitress and in love with Benny. And she said, with all that money, why are you still living upstate and stuff like that?
Oh,
And he's
right.
all like, they're barely getting used to a black ball player, but they're not going to be used to a black neighbor. And I was all
Right.
like, man,
Yeah.
like,
Well, yeah,
even
I
though
mean,
they're rooting for him,
right. Yeah. And, what surprised me too was that Jake Sisko's character, I mean, he uttered
Mhm.
the N word. Yeah.
It was
I
like,
mean,
it was
front
the
and center.
90s.
Yeah.
They were still, I think, I mean, at that time, it was funny. My daughter, she just got the, what's it called? Best hits of Notorious B.I.G. She's into Mickey right now. So,
Okay.
but I know it was just like, all right, go for it. And yeah, he drops the N-word here and there and stuff like that. And, and I was all like, wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
It kind of, but it was the 90s.
But
Like it was just, it
but
was
you know
still
what though? I
okay.
mean, again, it fit into the story's narrative. It fit
But it
with
did. Yeah.
what they were trying to tell you.
Mhm.
And it wasn't frivolous. It wasn't like a gratuitous sex scene or anything that just like really didn't
No.
matter.
No, they were
It
showing
really
how it
was.
was.
Yeah.
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 So, I mean, there was nothing fake about it with the story may be fiction, but the situations that they were
Sure.
not,
Right.
you
Yeah.
know. Oh, well, we saw him with the crowbar, so we had to shoot him. He had a weapon.
Hmm.
What? Like it
Right.
was just that's
Yeah.
what was happening. And it was nice to see that put on screen because what you don't see, you just kind of like brush it under the rug. Oh, I didn't see
Right.
it, so it didn't happen.
Sure.
When you're forced to see it, it
Yeah.
changes your perspective on things. But like
Absolutely.
I said, Beverly would not take this crap.
Yeah, and it's funny because I remember thinking during a lot of the office scenes that I really wanted the other writers to kind of defend him a little more than they did. I know some of them were kind of hemming and hawing, and then some of them weren't really like the Dr. Bashir's character seemed a little on the
He was
weak side.
wishy-washy.
He was very
Yeah.
wishy-washy. I almost think
Yeah.
that his shots were done separately because the way that they were intercut with the main action were a little bit of a mismatch, but that's more of my television production eye. But
Caught that
I
real quick.
right. I did want to have the other characters kind of defend him a little more against the publisher. But I
Armin's
understand, yeah.
character. Yeah, Armin's character, like he was very upset and stuff like that, but
Mhm.
he was still there.
Right.
You know, Kira's character, I feel like she just felt this is just how it is right now. I don't have
Sure.
much of a choice, right? She was
Yeah.
put in that position. No one can know there's a woman writer writing science fiction, right?
Right.
Which
They told
again,
her to
BC Montana.
sleep late
Oh, for the photo
with
shoot.
right, for the photo shoot. Everybody needs to have their photo in this
Yep.
expose, but you can sleep late.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She and Benny knew. Oh, well, I guess
Yeah.
we're sleeping late tomorrow.
Right.
Because they can't know that there's a black man and a woman writing science fiction. Like
Right.
it was well done. Just nothing. I mean, I believe it's probably one of the best episodes that they put out there.
Sure.
There's
Yeah,
a lot of good
Deep Space,
DS9
yeah.
episodes.
DS9 really has some really great stories. I think there was
They pushed the
one
envelope.
yeah, there's one later in the season with Garrick the Tailor where they realized that they captured a war criminal, and obviously this was this would have paralleled Nazi death camps and
Mhm.
stuff from World War II. And
Right.
again, just strong characters and strong stories from that show. I remember the big controversy when the show was first announced. People were saying, how can you have a Star Trek show without a starship? they're just sitting in a space station. Like, what are they going
True.
to do? Yeah.
Yeah.
Remember that? Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I get it because that was what Star Trek.
Right. Right. Yeah.
They're trekking through the stars.
Wagon train to the
and-
stars. Yeah.
Exactly. And yeah, for them to just be stationary in an area and then basically the other aliens and stuff
Would
coming to
come.
them was
Yeah.
different.
Sure.
But you kind of have to break it up a little bit. I mean, and that's why
Danny, by the way, the Defiant is her favorite ship. It means a lot to her, and I understand. I'm sorry. You know what? We're gonna we should have a whole month dedicated just to the Defiant, just for Danny. We'll have a couple of episodes.
What's her birthday month? We'll make that
that would be great.
That would be it.
Yeah.
What did Riker say? That's a tough little ship, and Worf was like, little.
Yeah.
Cracked me up. We love the Defiant, Danny. Don't worry. But you kind of have to break it up a little bit. You can't just keep having the same Star Trek show of them being on some kind of ship. What made Voyager different was that they were in a whole quadrant, you know, so, and they were trying to get their way home. Makes sense, you know, but yeah, but honestly, everyone has something to say about any of the shows. When Next Generation came out, women doctor, what a bald captain, you know, like they were so like he had to wear a
fans are so weird. A
gosh,
bald captain?
I mean, and it was like, fun fact, I don't know if many people know this, but they added 10 years to Picard's age just because Patrick was bald.
That's funny.
So there's that. Yeah, it's so dumb. So like instead of a 9-year difference between Beverly and Picard, there's a 19-year difference. And I'm like, he became bald when he was like 20 years old. Like it wasn't because he was old. It's funny. A condition, you know, and it was just, but it was one of those stereotypes where it was like, oh, you must be old if you're bald, you know? So do you have anything else to add with this, with Beverly and all that stuff? Because like I said, she wouldn't take the crap. She would I think she would have been the one who would have been more pushy, like we wanted from those other characters. Yes.
I actually wonder if her inclusion would have been detrimental to the episode and how the episode played out, because she is such a strong character. I think things would have been fixed a little quicker if Beverly Crusher was also a science fiction writer. Yeah. So
she's very quick on solving problems. That's her whole thing.
Yeah.
She loves a mystery. She loves to help people, and she always puts others first, you know. So
and you're right, just like, you know, a doctor would do. I mean, the oath of the doctor is you know, do no harm, et cetera, et cetera. So it's
now, since a lot of these characters are playing different positions, like Cassidy was a server, you know, Worf was a baseball player. Instead of her being a science fiction writer, and a doctor, because that would just be too obvious, what kind of profession do you think she would have been at this time?
Oh, that's a good question. And then do we give her the profession and give her the attributes that go along with that profession during this time? Because I feel my first inclination was that she would have been the owner of the magazine that they're working at. But if you were the owner of that magazine, then you would be pressured by your board of directors not to publish. But that would have been an interesting little side story where she wants to publish it and her board members don't want her to publish it because he's a black science fiction writer. So that would have been,
I think too, for like Kira's character, she was a woman science fiction writer, but she had to play by the rules in order to keep doing what she wanted, which is total opposite of Kira's character, right? She didn't play by the rules. It would be interesting to see if that Beverly attributes would have followed into that story, or would have she kind of been downgraded a little bit to play along with what was going on in the 50s, right? Because a lot of times they had to just play along and just do it so that they could just do what they can. Of course, Danny, perfect dance. She was a dance teacher.
Right. Yeah.
Or even just a school teacher. Like, right? Like Beverly was always one to just, she loved children. Right?
Someone who
she
still
being
nurtures.
a mother. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that would be, or even, especially at this time, theater. Right? She would be a theater teacher or something like that.
Or you know what? Like some sort of activist.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That would totally
like
be her.
women's rights.
That would be so Beverly. Absolutely.
During that time, yeah.
Backyard to make her the nurse that patches him up.
Yeah, yeah.
A little cameo. That would have been cool though, like a cameo over there. But yeah, dance teacher would be perfect given Gates's background. And if you think about this, was 1953. This was about a time where like Lucille Ball was making headway of doing big things that no one saw a woman do at this time. So, and she kind of just paved the way for everybody else to do the same.
Yeah.
So I could definitely see Beverly's character in some kind of like a teacher role and stuff like that. But yeah, like an activist and just always being on top of everything like that.
Always wanting to do the right thing. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, she was always against the prime directive because she's like, it's not, I don't feel this. This is not,
yeah.
I don't like this at all.
Yeah.
So, do you have any final thoughts?
You got a lot of Star Trek nerds in the chat. They know their stuff.
They do know their stuff. And it's funny because when they know that Gates was, dance teacher, right? Actually, and that didn't even dawn on me. I feel like an idiot. So thank you, Danny, for helping me out. But yeah, it was just kind of funny.
Oh, wow.
Because I was all like, if she wasn't just one of the science fiction writers, what else would she have done?
Sure. Yeah.
And currently right now they have those comic books where her character is with Ben Sisko. Like he came back after being gone for that year or whatever. And she's helping him with something. There's like Scotty and Data and Tom Paris is there with the baby. Like it's like all these random characters but it's becoming a really good a good story. So
nice.
I needed to do this real fast. So this is our next episode. Redhead alert to let you guys know that the next episode I'm going to be doing is Picard season 3, 1 year later. I'm going to have my favorite cosplayer and friend, Erin. As you can see with her picture down there, she loves to cosplay as Beverly Crusher, and The Big Goodbye is one of her favorite episodes. But I kind of wanted to deep dive a little bit after a year of watching season 3 over and over and over again, how my views have changed when I, compared to when I first saw it. So I thought that would be lots of fun. So I can't wait. That is actually going to be coming out in 2 weeks. I'm going to be taking next week off. So yeah, I'm super excited about that. Did you love season 3 of Picard?
I definitely loved season 3 of Picard. Unabashedly loved it very much. They did a lot of things right.
They did a lot of things right. Yes.
Yeah.
Did you saw the first 2 seasons though?
I did.
You were one that just okay. Some people were like, I'm only watching season 3. I was like, well, you kind of need to see the first 2 to kind of understand what's going on.
I mean, I would argue that you really don't need to see the second season. It's
touche.
Yeah.
It's a little all over the place. There are good moments.
Sure.
I think the story about his mom is important. But
I still don't understand why they would clone him and then leave the sickness in him. What's the point?
Well, they didn't leave the sickness in him.
I thought they did. Like he still had the, what was it called? The Irumodic syndrome.
Irumodic syndrome.
Yeah.
No, they kept his body, Daystrom. His new body didn't have it.
Okay.
What did they say? It was Sung realized it wasn't the sickness. There was something else going on. So he wanted to test it and he didn't get the chance to. So, and that's because it was Borg DNA. It wasn't even Irumodic syndrome. So, But Danny says, my grandma was a dance teacher back then. And then in the 60s, she started working for the CIA. Make that Beverly's.
Yeah, it would have been.
Your grandma's pretty awesome, Danny. My goodness. I mean, my grandparents, they came from Mexico in the 50s. So that's when my family was planted right here in America. My grandfather was very smart. He was a scientist and a professor. But unfortunately, as he had to become a citizen here in the States, you no longer have your degree. So he had to do those janitor, roles to feed the family.
Yeah, I had a friend of mine who, an older gentleman at the TV station. He was a media sales person, but South America, where he came from, he was a doctor and a scientist, and then he didn't want to go through it all over again. So,
right,
it's a shame. You can't just kind of like take a couple of tests, and then do your thing. But
yeah. And my grandma was a seamstress. She was doing that on the side. So actually a lot of our clothes that we wore as a kid was made by grandma.
Nice. Very nice.
And Danny says, Mama is legit American hero and she's the best. I agree. And I never even met your mama. Backyard Tardis says, I watched half of season 1 of Picard and then season 3, loved season 3, didn't like season 1. Season 1 had its flaws. I personally enjoyed it. 2 was just all over the place and I just could not get into it. And
very disjointed.
Very disjointed. But this is off Beverly, off Picard, all of it. I really hated what they did with Seven and Rafi.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Like, I don't ship them, but I feel like, I should say I kind of do ship them, but like they're not like my top ships. But the thing is you see like a 2-second scene at the end of season 1. Oh, then they broke up. And then, they get back together at the end of season 2. And then they broke up.
Yeah.
And then nothing in season 3. I'm like, what the hell?
Yeah. I think, again, so bad for
Sappy fans.
It's similar to what I feel about the sequel trilogy going into Star Wars. It's a pissing match between directors. Like, one director establishes one thing and then the other director's like, yeah, I don't like that shit, so I'm not going to even do anything. So
I just saw Icheb in Voyager. Now, that one scene was absolutely heartbreaking because I just finished his actual story. But I think out of all the characters in Star Trek universe, Seven's arc.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
she's come a long way.
Where she started and now she's the captain of the Enterprise. Like, bravo! Like, love it. And that's why I really want something to see with Rafi and Seven and Jack and just see their adventures and Sydney, because I think it's a continuation to their story. Sure. Yeah. I think it would be very, very important. But yeah, I think that almost like wraps it up.
Yeah, for sure.
They did pretty good.
It was a great episode, great discussion. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, do you have anything to plug in right now, or anything exciting coming up?
My co-host and I are gearing up to do new shows, but if I have to plug anything, it's all my friends at the Red 5 Network bio link. So if you guys are into, sci-fi discussions, talks, audio, YouTube, whatever, you want to be nerdy, come be nerdy with the Red 5 Network. Head on over to bio.link/Red5. We are Red 5. Look for that hashtag and look for the shenanigans wherever you get your other favorite content.
I asked my husband the other day, I was all like, when I say Red 5 to you, what do you think of? He's like, you mean Luke?
Yeah. There you go.
He's a fan.
Yep.
I keep telling him too.
Card carrying.
Like, Ro wants, he's a card carrying member. I keep telling him, I was like, Ro wants you on his show. He wants to talk to you. He's all like, I don't know what to talk about. I was like, Star Wars.
Yeah, you know stuff.
Stuff. Actually, I posted this on Twitter. He just got a brand new car and her name's Ripley. And so he was like, I'm going to go off because all of our cars are named after Star Wars characters. And he's like, I'm going to do something a little different. And at first he almost went and did Decker. So he was almost going that route, but he's like, I'm not sure. I was like, your favorite movie is Alien. And he's like, oh yeah, Ripley sounds like, I was like, how'd you forget that movie? you know, and now with the new movie coming out, he's super excited. My mom's also a huge Alien fan, so they like to go on dates. So anytime a new Alien movie comes out, they're like, it's time to take mom-in-law out to the movies.
That's cool. That's cool.
I just watched the movie later on.
The only car that I ever named, I had a 1993 Volkswagen Jetta, and I called it The Return of the Jetta.
That's a good one. That's a good one.
Yep.
But thank you to everyone who has been watching on Twitter and YouTube, on my channel and Rose's channel. Really appreciate it. Shows that we have like 63 people watching right now. So this is awesome. But anyways, all right, guys, thank you so much. And I will see you in a couple of weeks. So bye.
Crusher out.